Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melisa Caprio.
Everybody's energy is like crazy. And I don't know if you guys, well, I know the guys who listen to me all the time know this, but I'm in Florida and we're also having a tropical storm, Hurricane Nicole, and it's actually happening as we speak. So yeah, if I get kicked off the air, that's why, because, who knows what's going to happen with these storms. We never know, just the joy of living in Florida. But if I do, I will try to call back in so I can get back on, because I have my favorite returning guest, Reverend Gregory Possman, on, and Gregory's a Physic Trance Channel, and he's going to join me in just a minute. I hope I sound okay. Gregory, do I sound okay to you? I just want to make sure.
You sound great to me.
Okay, perfect. All right, Gregory's going to join in just a few minutes. So welcome to all my regular listeners. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're in Florida right now, we've been hit with some crazy weather. So, guys, stay safe. I hope everybody's doing okay. For those of you who are new to tuning into my show for the first time, welcome. I'm so grateful that you're here. A little bit about me. I'm an author and a photographer, and I have a book, and it's called Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And in my book, I show 30 manifesting stories along with the photographs that I took of the contributors' postcards. They're manifesting postcards. And in it, I also have some writing exercises, and it helps us manifest in the areas that we want to manifest. And usually the main areas are love, money, health, career, right? Those are where we always want more, and we want to bring more abundance in our lives. So if you're interested in doing the inner work and reading the really cool stories of transformation, inspiration, and manifesting, you can find my book at your favorite bookstore, and you could purchase a copy, and I would love it if you would do that. I'm also always asking people to send me a manifesting postcard, and you can find out how to do that and where to send it if you go to postcardstotheuniverse.com. I have all the information on how to create a manifesting postcard. And if you're on Facebook, I have a nice little group called Postcards of Love, and you can join me over there and share some uplifting posts. Each week I share a little magical message that I usually try to post on a Monday. And it's an image of a manifesting postcard that I photographed with an affirmation. And I love affirmations. I work with them all the time. That's a lot of what my second book is going to be about. But this week's magical message is, in the end, we all become stories. So my thought for today is, what story do you want your life to say? It's really something to think about. Does your story help people, or does it hurt people? Does your story show how well you loved yourself and others? Does your story create paths of possibility of growth? Does your story have a plot where you overcame some obstacle and transformed it? And how can you help us by telling us your story? And will your story leave a mark on others when you are no longer here? There are so many stories your life can be, and the only one who has authorship of your story is yourself. So I thought this was a really cool, I found this when I was thinking about what our stories are, something that Toni Morrison wrote, and she says, the theme you choose may change or simply elude you, but being your own story means you can always choose the tone. It also means that you can invent the language to say who you are and what you mean. By then, I'm a teller of stories and therefore an optimist, a believer in the ethical bend of the human heart, a believer in the mind's disgust with fraud and its appetite for truth, a believer in the ferocity of beauty. So from my point of view, which is that of a storyteller, I see your life as already artful, waiting just waiting and ready for you to make it art. And I thought, oh, what a beautiful sentiment about talking about the stories of our lives. So just think about it. What story do you want your life to be? What do you want your story to be? You're in charge. You're the author. Okay, so next week I have a really interesting guest. Her name is Linda Yale Schiller, and she's a mind, body, and spiritual psychotherapist. And she's an author and an international speaker. And she wrote a book titled PTS Dreams Transform Your Nightmares from Trauma Through Healing and Dream Work. And she shares how nightmares, especially those caused by trauma, not only disrupt our sleep, but can leave us exhausted, on edge, and haunt our daylight hours. And with in-depth information on the nature of nightmares, she's going to show us how to turn anxiety-filled or heart-pounding dreams into resources for spiritual growth. So next week, join me, especially if you're interested in dream work. And if you do have a lot of nightmares and you suffer from traumatic nightmares, it's going to be a really interesting show. All right. So to get to my guest today, Reverend Gregory Possman, many of you guys know who he is already because he's been on my show a bunch of times. But for those of you who don't, I'll just share a little bit about him. He began as a psychic trance channel in the early 90s, and he channels over 40 light beings, including Sananda, Archangels, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, as well as Master Teacher Spirit Quan Yin, Mary, the 5 members of the Council of Shambhala, and he's also channels the Pleiadians, Siriuns, and Venusians. Reverend Possman, he performs workshops throughout the world and offers recorded, channeled, private sessions by phone. Now today, this morning, he sent me an email that Kuan Yin is going to be our visitor this afternoon, and she's going to be talking about the latest infusion of feminine energy onto the planet. So I'm excited to talk with her in a little bit. And each month he offers a channeled message, and it's available at gregorypossman.com, GRGORYPOSSMAN.com. Hey Gregory, how you doing today?
I am well. I am doing
Good.
well.
How's your weather? Much better than ours.
Well, in beautiful downtown Todd, North Carolina, it's 54 degrees and sunny.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. So, so Gregory, how have you been doing? Gregory recently lost his beloved wife, and how long were you married now, Gregory?
We
A
were
long time.
married for 22 years and had lived together for 8 years prior to that. So we were
Oh, wow.
together for 30 total years.
Yeah, that's a long time. So how are you doing? I know you're going through the waves of grief.
Living life day to day, and some days are better than others. Some
Mm-hmm.
days are happy and joyous, and
Mm-hmm.
I've found that sorrow and grief eventually turn into a kind of gratitude. And it takes a lot of time. It's not happening frequently, but I'm grateful for the time that we had together. And I remind myself constantly that we are still together and will always be together, just not in the physical. So that's
Right.
kind of a thought that keeps me going.
Yeah, well, not in the physical, right.
Not
But,
in the
right, you
physical.
guys will always be together, and at some point you'll be together on the other side again.
Indeed, we will.
Indeed. Are you getting a lot of messages from her?
Very, very few. I
Mm-hmm.
never had that gift. My sister is a medium,
Uh-huh.
and she gets the messages more frequently than I do. What I feel is Sandy's presence around me.
Mm-hmm.
And a great example of that, I officiated a wedding on Saturday that was involved. We had a pretty major rainstorm with a lot of fog, and it was cold, and so I was driving in some pretty inclement weather, and I could feel Sandy's presence around me. Another comment that people have made is that now I have another angel in heaven watching out for me. And I do
Mm-hmm.
feel that. I feel that very intensely.
Yeah.
And so an interesting aspect of that and is that I pray every night for Sandy's spirit to move forth in her evolution And then I think in my left brain that if she's protecting me on this side, how can she move forth in her spiritual evolution? And then I am reminded that she is a very busy woman and she can do a lot of things at once.
Yeah, that is true. And I imagine when you're not constricted by the body, you can be in many places simultaneously, right? You can be in
Every
more than one
place you
place.
want to be at the same time. Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. So she could be doing she could be doing both and so much more for all you know,
She was
right?
always much better at that than I was, and she still is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also lost my sister 4 months ago, and we've been getting a lot of signs from her trying to get our attention. And it's been really wild and actually very healing, I find, because I believe that she's sending us in her way, however she could get through to get our attention. I'm still here. I'm with you guys. I haven't left. And that brings me a lot of comfort. And I know it brings my other sister and my mother and father a lot of comfort too. You know, that, oh, okay, just because she's not here physically doesn't mean that we have to end our relationship with her. And I love the fact that she's trying to get our attention and she keeps giving us all different signs, and that's really cool. Are you getting like signs, like anything being moved or a song or a passage in a book that you know is from her to you?
Not in the manner that you're describing. What
Mhm.
happens frequently is I see something on the shelf at the grocery store that I know she used to love. I
Mhm.
hear a song or I see something on a television program or a movie that reminds me of her, and my brother-in-law explained it as being ambushed by grief. And
Mm.
all of a sudden, I find myself crying and missing her. And
Sure.
so that's probably not exactly the same kind of sign you're talking about. It's a reminder to me that she is indeed with me and that she'll
Mhm.
always be in my heart. And that's not a lot of consolation, but it's some.
Mhm.
And that she's still doing her work. She's still doing great, wonderful things for whomever she's interacting with. And
Mhm.
she'll always be a part of me. And your
Mhm.
sister will always be a part of you. I constantly think about all the memories we have and how that lives on forever.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, a song, if it reminds you of her or her favorite thing at the grocery store, may just be a little whisper like, hey, I'm here with you. You know what I mean? This is me. This is me. I look at those as signs, significant signs, like I'm right here. I'm right by your side.
I totally agree. I My sister told me, sent me a message that Sandy had
Hmm.
left something for me, and I didn't find it right away. But
Uh-huh.
in what I would describe as a kind of a setback initially, it forced me to look through a lockbox, and I found almost $400 that Sandy had sort of packed away. It was a birthday gift for her. She never spent it, and yet
Uh-huh.
there it was. And I just thought, wow, that's a pretty powerful sign.
Yeah, it is. Sandy's telling your sister, tell my husband that I have something for him and he needs to. That's great, though. Yeah, I think that's a significant sign. I
I
really
think
do.
so. I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
It
And I
doesn't get any
know.
more obvious than that.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah, and you're going through, the waves of grief. I mean, to be with somebody for that long and then they're not here in the physical body anymore. It's a new life and you have to get used to it, and it takes a while. So I can imagine what you must be going through. So I really appreciate you still saying that you'll be here with me, because I know it's not always easy. And we're going to have Quan Yin, and she's going to join us when we come back from the break. So why don't we take our break here? And then when we come back, you can explain a little bit who Quan Yin is for those who don't know. Stay tuned, guys, and we'll be right back.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
The rainbow is God's promise of hope for you and me. And though the clouds hang heavy and the sun we cannot see, we know above the dark clouds that fill the stormy sky, hope's rainbow will come shining through when the clouds have drifted by. Teresa Caprio is the president and founder of Rainbow Guardian Inc., a nonprofit 501c3 serving the intellectually challenged/developmentally disabled, including autism. Teresa started the foundation in 1995 so she could help make a better life for her intellectually challenged daughter. Her dream is that the Rainbow Guardian will provide the necessary tools and education to help the public understand the special needs population, because it's often discarded in mainstream society. To find out more or make a donation in support, please go to www.rainbowguardian.org. Rainbow Guardian's special mission is to see these unique people live a happy, full life and have a future of liberty and equality.
Welcome back. So if you're just joining me today, I have a returning guest who I love when he's on my show, Reverend Gregory Possman, and he's a Psychic Trance Channel, so he's going to be channeling live here in just a minute. So Gregory, today, Quan Yin is going to come through, and for those who have no idea who Quan Yin is, can you share a little bit about her before you kind of move yourself out of the way?
I will be happy to. She considers herself, or oftentimes refers to herself, as Divine Mother. She also, on occasion, mentions that she is the goddess of compassion, forgiveness, and I can't remember the third one. My mind went blank.
That's okay.
Anyway, she calls that a title. She's got absolutely no ego.
Right.
And she is the only entity that I ever did any research on because I was curious. And what I found was, after reading a bit about her, in most of the countries in Asia, she is considered a goddess, especially in the Buddhist tradition. There are a lot of temples devoted to her. And she is oftentimes prayed to by women for fertility. She is also, if you look at any particular country, you'll find varying legends about her. And they talk about her lifetimes on the planet, and that's very interesting, but they're all different. They're not the same. So I found that very curious. But that's about the maximum that I know as far as
Okay.
Kuan Yin goes.
Okay. Well, she's going to join us. So if I have any questions, I'll just ask her outright.
I'm sure it's better to get it straight from the source.
Okay. All right. So you tell me, are you ready or do you need
Ready to
a.
roll. Here we
Okay,
go.
let's go.
Greetings, most beautiful lady. We bow to your divine essence.
I'm so excited to talk with you again, Quan Yin. Thank you so much for being here with me this afternoon. So I know Gregory sent me a message today that you wanted to talk about the latest infusion of feminine energy onto this planet. So I will let you have the floor and you can share what the messages you have for us today.
There are a number of you who are extremely sensitive to energy. And if you are listening to this conversation, it is most likely that what we have just said applies to you. In that vein, it is a truth that a massive amount of feminine energy is being applied to your planet Earth at this point in time. There are those who do not wish to see this process successful, and one can say that they are preventing or attempting to prevent this energy from becoming permanent on your planet. This is causing a tremendous amount of polarity. It is also causing a great division between people from many different places, people of differing belief systems, people with different cultures. And so, it is one of the reasons that your planet is undergoing such a massive division of belief and greater difficulty coming together, so to speak.
Yes. So, what can we do about that? Yesterday was an election day, and many of the elections that were won by very extreme politicians who want to take a lot of rights away from women. So, what can you say to us about that?
That is a prime example of what we are talking about. In other words, these ways of preventing women from finding positions of power and becoming more and more compassionate in terms of the leadership of varying institutions on your planet is what one might call a kind of theme or plan to avoid the more spiritual energy to take over. We believe that this process is going to, shall we say, implode, and that all of that energy that has been expended on preventing the feminine energy from becoming more prevalent on your planet will ultimately be dissolved. And it is to understand that this will not take place in violent ways. It will take place in very peaceful ways. We suspect that you will see on your planet, especially in your country, a tremendous outcry from all of those women who are outraged by these attempts to control them. We can feel the energy rising in your own body at this moment in time as you respond, not react, but respond to those who desire to take away your own choices, your own rights, and your own abilities. This is not something that is taking place recently. This has been taking place for thousands of years on your planet. And if you look back at some of the defacing that took place amongst the Egyptian temples, you will see that queens who had been extremely powerful and had also been extremely popular have been defaced from those temples and those shrines. There is a reason for that. The masculine does not want the feminine remembered for all of her accomplishments. If you look at any culture, you will possibly see where these kinds of defacing acts have taken place. And therefore, it is to understand that one must look at the fear of the feminine. Why is the masculine afraid of the feminine? Because the feminine is magic. The feminine is powerful. The feminine is a creator. And she creates with a minimal amount of energy. She does it because that is what she was designed to do.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So then a follow-up would be the masculine. What is the masculine afraid of losing by making room for the feminine? Because if they've been fighting this for thousands of years, they're obviously afraid. So what is it? Not having power? It's hard for me to understand it.
The opposite of fear for the left brain is control. And therefore, the masculine seeks control of the feminine. And any way it can garner that control, it will do so. And it has done so in many of the institutions that have been around for a long period of time in so many different countries and cultures. And yet, there are examples of countries where the feminine energy is beginning to gain ground. The country of New Zealand is one of them. Mm-hmm. There are others where women have gained multiple positions of power and are utilizing their own, shall we call it, intuition, their own inspiration in order to change the ways of government. This terrifies some of the other countries and creates this desire for control. And that is a huge part of what we are talking about. In the end, when the divine blueprint has in fact been completely and totally distributed, has been honored, and is completed, the aspect of the feminine will stand in equality with the masculine, and the two will literally merge together.
Do we know when that will occur? Is that going to occur soon? I mean, I know you may be saying it's already occurring, but I mean where it's complete and we are on an even playing field, I guess would be the sentence.
One could say it is occurring in the ethers, on the other side, so to speak.
Okay.
We do not have masculine and feminine in what are called the light realms. You simply have light. And it's not feminine light or masculine light, it is light. And so, yes, you are correct. In some dimensions and realms, it is already occurring. One could also say that the physical plane has been very slow to catch up, so to speak. That is one way to put it. Mm-hmm. Now, you have an influx of a tremendous number of spiritual beings who are entering into physical bodies at this time, whether they are being born, whether they are walk-ins, or in whatever manner they are introduced to the earth plane. And they will oversee this process, contribute to it, and the truth of equality amongst the genders, however many one decides there are, the truth of that equality will win, so to speak. And change, which of course the masculine is terrified of, change is imminent. It will take place.
Well, that is very comforting to hear. So, as women, what should we be doing now? Because a lot of women I know personally are enraged at the moment, and women don't want to resort to violence as it's been done so many times before to us. So collectively, what should we be doing as women?
You organize, you come together, you speak out against any sort of control that is placed over you. Mm-hmm. You give yourselves permission to speak out peacefully. Of course, you abhor violence and you do not engage in that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you communicate with those who are in power, who can stop these kinds of actions, legality, legislation, and any other form of control that is attempted to place on you. You also begin to research how these kinds of controls have been, shall we say, removed from other countries. How were they successful in allowing greater and greater rights for women to be enacted and integrated into their system?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what can we say to those people, because it's also men, or many men that are on the side of the embracing the feminine energy, who just feel helpless and want to retreat and don't feel like what they do matters. And so what can we say to those people?
Find the energy that is necessary to speak out and to let your feelings and your thoughts and your ideas be known. Do not sit back and watch injustice continue to be enacted upon those who seemingly cannot stop it. In other words, the archetype of the knight, the honorable knight, for both male and female, because, as you are well aware, warriors have been both male and female throughout history.
Yes.
One allows oneself to find that archetype deep within and to awaken it and allow it to begin to speak for the rights of those who cannot defend themselves or choose not to, if that be the reason. And then make certain that all of that speaking out is peaceful in its nature. There is no room for violence in this message.
No, and when you're violent, the message is lost. So you're right, there is no room for violence in this message. There's so much more I want to ask. So before I do, I want to take our break here because I have a bunch more questions. So stay tuned, everybody, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. And I have more questions for Kuan Yin. So be right back.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. So I'm speaking with Quan Yin through Gregory Possman. He is a channel, and we're talking about the divine feminine energy. So Quan Yin, I'm really concerned more with the younger generation of girls growing up and what the world is going to look like for them, especially in radicalized states, and also with the internet and so much false information being out there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
You remember that we said there is a massive influx of spiritual beings coming into your planet.
Yes.
Many of them are embodied in those bodies that you are concerned about.
Okay.
And so, when they remember that they are in fact spiritual beings and that no one has control over their choices and decisions, they will begin to do all they can to visualize the change in the varying legislations, laws, and policies and procedures of the governments in the countries in which they live. That process, though given very little credibility by many human beings, is going to create a wave of change. That wave of change will begin to show itself probably within the next 12 months' time. And in so doing, a rather interesting shift and change will take place. It is true that historically, any time an extreme is approached, ultimately, the other direction begins to occur. And what one could call the mid-ground, the middle, so to speak, is found, because there is balance. Balance will be sought consistently by these individuals who will be, to some degree, outraged, but will also accept whatever is necessary to allow for the kind of freedom that they believe they deserve.
That's very hopeful. Thank you for that. So then my second part of that question is, as you know, we have a thing called the internet and social media that we didn't have not that many years ago. And there's so much false information on there, and there's so many lies that get spread like a wildfire. So how are we going to be able to handle this moving forward?
In that aspect of those spiritual beings we talked about, they have their own internet. It is called their intuition.
Okay.
And as they begin to apply it more frequently, they will know what is truth and what is lies. And no matter what is published, nor how convincing or persuading it may be, they will pay little or no attention to it. You see, the truth is that the truth is very important. And the truth from within is what is most important. There is another truth. The greatest fear for many human beings is silence. However, as you have heard from those on our side before, when you are in the silence, you are listening to your heart and your soul. You are not listening to your ego. And when you are hearing the noise, it is the ego that is actually creating the sound. And so, as these beings go deeper and deeper into themselves, they will know what is truth and what is lies. That goes for each and every one of you who is listening. Because when you become silent, which you oftentimes call prayer or meditation, you can listen to your soul and it will tell you the truth. That is very simple. And it is true.
I love that. I do think many of us are making those choices, especially since we're coming out of the pandemic where we were forced inside, that many of us have really gone inside of ourselves to listen to our truth. So that's my personal opinion. So how can we trust our own truth? So many of us don't trust ourselves.
You experiment. In other words, you give yourself permission first to find that place where you feel most comfortable. Maybe at the beach, maybe in the forest, maybe on top of a mountain, maybe in the desert. And you go there and you get quiet. You sit or you stand or you lie down, whatever position feels most comfortable to you. And you give yourself permission to listen. And then whatever information you take away from that place, you give yourself permission to act upon it. And then you begin to see the magic take place, since you talk about magic in your own business. You give yourself permission to watch the magic occur. And then you become convinced that you are listening to what is appropriate, to what you need to hear. It is that simple. And you begin to believe your beliefs, and you begin to doubt your doubts.
Okay. I'd love that, going someplace and getting quiet and listening to what's within and connecting with the earth. Is there something else that each of us could be doing on a daily basis that helps lift the planet, that helps move us forward, something in that realm, if you understand my meaning, what I'm trying to ask you.
Close your eyes for a moment.
Okay.
Imagine two armies about to
Okay.
do battle inside of you. One is masculine, one is feminine. Female warriors versus male warriors. Imagine those two generals that command those armies riding to the front line, both with white flags. And one looks in the other's eyes, one of course male, one of course female. And at the same moment, they approach each other. And one looks at the other and says, "You are surrendering." And the other looks and says, "Yes, you are surrendering." And the second says, "We surrender to ourselves. And then we live harmoniously with one another." And at the same moment, every warrior on both sides lays down their arms, their shields, and their weapons. And they begin to move toward one another, literally infiltrating the other army. And no one speaks. There is silence. They look into each other's eyes, and they see themselves.
Wow.
Breathe. You have just experienced your own masculine and feminine energies merging with one another instead of fighting one another. Trust is generated.
That's a beautiful visualization and something that we can each do within ourselves every day to help heal the planet, because I think we need a lot of healing right now, Kuan Yin. We need a lot of help from above, so I'm glad to hear that that's coming and it's here for us.
Perhaps each of you is a part of the above and the below. And so, the help that you are talking about is being generated from within, and it is working.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. That's a beautiful message. Okay, so I have a question on, since it was just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, on the eclipse. A lot of people talk about the power of an eclipse, a lunar or solar, and then we had a lunar eclipse. So is there a message that we should take when there's a lunar eclipse?
It is like starting over. In other words, you begin anew. By the disappearance or the darkening, so to speak, you enter into the void. And it is from the void that all creation take place. And so, as that process occurs, it is an opportunity to begin again. That is the message. So whereas some might see the results of those elections you mentioned as the beginning of a period of great difficulty, perhaps it is also an opportunity for an entirely new and different freedom to be introduced. Remember, things are not always as they seem.
Thank you for that reminder. Sometimes it's hard to remember that. Yes,
You
it's
do
interesting.
live in a world of illusion.
Yes, we do. It's interesting that the eclipse fell on election day in this country. Okay, so we only have a few minutes, and is there something that we can be doing collectively to help with the global warming? For example, as we speak, I'm sitting in the middle of a tropical storm / hurricane as I'm talking to you, another one. So what could we be doing to help the global warming that's causing all these mass destruction of our planet?
You sit quietly and you imagine your own being cooling off. In other words, becoming more peaceful, more balanced, and more calm. And as you do that, that energy flows down through the root chakra and the soles of the feet into what you call Gaia or Terra or Mother Earth. And that process changes, shifts. There are, of course, 100 other things you may do. There are many articles written about what that is. As powerful as those suggestions are, one could say they pale in light of finding that inner peace inside of self.
Wow. I really got that message really strongly. Thank you for that. Wow, yeah, I can see that if we did that collectively, how that would shift everything. Well, Kuan Yin, as always, I want to say thank you. I'm going to ask you, you probably have to give Gregory his body back because we only have about a minute left of the show, so we have to wrap it up. But I so appreciate you joining me and always love when you're here with me and to share this space with you. Thank you.
Remember, we are only a reflection of you, as we are all connected. So be it. We bow to your most divine wisdom and essence. Oof.
I love when I talk to Quan Yin. I don't know, there's just something about her. I just love her energy so much when she's on. She's great.
Well, she reminded me, Goddess of mercy, compassion, and forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine I can't even imagine what it must feel like when a spirit enters into your physical space. I mean, that must be wild. That really must be wild.
That's one way to put it.
Well, Gregory, it's always so great having you on. I love you. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to have you back. Guys, you got to check out Gregory. Go to GregoryPossman.com and listen to his monthly messages and channels. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. And Florida, stay safe. Peace.